I'm Kimberly C. Paul. As I travel throughout each state, I realize that death is just a moment. It is how we live until that moment that matters. Finding connection with friends, family, and complete strangers. Journey with me. This is the Live Well, Die Well Tour. So I just want to welcome you to the show, Sarah. I've been following you on social media, and I love your humor. And I don't know if that's just your sister coming out of you because she's a comedian, but there's a lot of humor you use when you talk about, every little thing about living and dying. How did that evolve?
Well, in my family, we worshipped at the altar of Steve Martin, I guess, growing up. I don't know that big, King Tut, that album came out when we were in our youth. And I mean, I must have listened to that thing 1,000 times. And I just thought I just think it brings so much delight. And there's so much to laugh at, especially in self-improvement, like self-help in that world. Like if you don't laugh, you're going to cry because it's just so hard. And in death, it's the one thing that's so beautiful that lightens those really heavy moments because, when someone's dying, there are heavy moments. Just like in life, there are heavy moments.
And just thinking about talking to you, you are a physician, an MD by trade. You met a walrus and then became is it shamanic healer?
Yes. And I would say this didn't happen instantly after meeting the walrus, but yes, the walrus definitely unlocked a process. So yeah, to back it up slightly, I was, I'd been practicing medicine for 20 years, but feeling really disconnected to it in the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years before this happened. And I finally got the courage to take a sabbatical to kind of try to figure out what the heck's going on with me. Why can't I just suck it up and keep going? And that summer, I'd stumbled into this strange concept that the wild animals that cross your path might have messages for you. And I was just like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. But I was so desperate in such a dark place at that point. I had a lot of fears like, oh my God, I'm going crazy, which was not a far-fetched idea with my family history. We have a lot of madness in our family. And anyway, I finally was like, okay, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to try it out. So it was like, the idea was like, what's the animal that's really captivated your attention? And I walked into this shop in our downtown, and on the wall, there was this taxidermied, dead, in fact, walrus, with these, 3-foot-long tusks. It was quite impressive. And I was like, wow, that is definitely catching my attention. And I was like, Mr. Walrus, please, hit me with your message. I am ready for it. And I stood there. In fact, I went back to the store a second time to see if I could hear something or get something. But finally, nothing came to me. But I started watching these YouTubes of walruses because I was like, okay, I'm just going to learn more about walruses. And what I noticed is they were just like laying on the beach, just so relaxed. Walruses are definitely not trying to be anything they are not. They're just like surrendered to the earth. They're not, you can tell they're not anxious about, oh my God, the clams are going to run out. Oh my God, do I look good on this beach at this angle or whatever, kind of thoughts that humans might. And then the other thing I learned is that they're apex predators, meaning they have no competition in the natural world besides, humans, right, obviously, and polar bears occasionally. But so I put those two things together and I was like, okay, if I could manage, maybe what the walrus is trying to tell me is like, if I could manage to be myself, Sarah, as much as possible, maybe I would have no competition either if I should choose to go into a different field. And that idea really buoyed me up. And then I began to be like, well, maybe these beasties do have something to help. Maybe I'm not the grand master of the world and maybe I should listen to the little ants. And, things started to kind of really point me in different directions and things I needed to know and help me relax a little so I could eventually step away from medicine and pursue, the work I do now, which I love. And really started, we were talking before the podcast gets started, but really it began with a call from death. When I was back in medical school, you go through the basic science training and then they send you into the wards. And one of my first patients She was a younger woman in her early 30s, 3 kids, recently divorced, dying of breast cancer. Well, she was there for like a research protocol, which was basically killing her. I mean, we later stopped those protocols because they were killing more people than they were helping. Anyway, there was one day we kept bringing her, giving her blood transfusions, and every day we would sort of report to her. And I remember just standing at her bedside, saying things like, we're going to try to get your platelets up again. And, your numbers are here. And this is, it was just very mechanistic, the way traditional medicine can be. And I remember going home at night and thinking something is missing. Like, we need to be talking to this lady about something, and I don't know what. And the next morning, of course, we get a page that the patient has bled to death, in the morning. And I just thought, like, somebody should have talked to her about dying, or that she was potentially dying, or that this is a time to bring the kids in. I mean, there was nobody ever there. I don't even know, I don't even know what happened because we were so busy. But I remember thinking, wow, if I'm going to go into medicine, we need to do something at that level. And I could see that wasn't the kind of medicine I was going to be getting trained in, at least from my point of view. I'm sure that I know there are great people out there that have figured a way to do that.
It's hard though. It really is difficult.
Yeah. Like, in addition to everything else you need to learn, you start mastering spirit and soul and awareness and paying attention to people, which is exquisitely difficult in the environment,
I can see, you're one of many, many physicians stepping away, not from being a doctor, but stepping away from how doctors practice. Because you will never not be a doctor. It's just, I think you're kind of now seeing how to treat the entire person instead of just pushing them into a medical model. Like, you want to get to know the person and not let them just be a patient. It's like knowing a person and knowing the patient are two different things. And you want to and they shouldn't be. They should be one.
Yeah. And I think for me, I really wanted to address the needs of the soul of the person. I didn't have the words for it, but that's really what I wanted to do, and
I love that.
But so that's how I ended up in pathology, which is because I was like, well, I can't do this, so I'll do this other thing, which I can still be of service and of use to other people somehow. But eventually, that call took me back to the Walrus. The Walrus took me into this very unknown world of the spirit world, which, as I know you've got an elephant in your room on your TED Talks. Like, I literally had a spirit elephant enter my life who really started changing it for the better, which may sound crazy to anybody who's listening to this podcast, but these ancient sort of concepts of spirit and power, that they're a very important part of life, and that each of us has a spirit animal, if we're conscious of it or not.
How do you figure out what your spirit animal is? Do they come to you?
Well, for some people, they come to you in your dreams. Some people, if you ask them, they just know. Like, or if you explain the concept to them, usually it's, for a lot of people, it's quite obvious to them. Sometimes it's an animal that you've loved, a wild animal you've loved since childhood. It typically is not a cat or a dog, like a domestic animal. Not that they can't be extremely helpful beasties for us.
Right.
But typically something wild that cannot be tamed, that is,
See, mine, it's a wolf.
See, there you go. And that would make a lot of sense, because I was just thinking about, when I think of wolves, I often think of teachers, and also this, which clearly you are a teacher about dying. And,
pack leader, like the pack. Yeah. We're not here to be alone.
Yeah.
And I've always desired to run in a pack of friends. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's so great. I mean, that's what I love about this kind of stuff. It's so simple, but it's also so playful and fun. And then you start thinking about yourself as a wolf, and it cracks open. You watch a documentary about wolves. I mean, and then think about yourself as you're relating to everything. It's like, wow, your whole world just starts to open up. It's really interesting.
Well, and the crazy thing is, I'm a huge Washington Redskin fan, and they're thinking about changing their name to Red Wolves.
Ooh.
And I'm like, I wasn't going to follow you anymore. And suddenly it was just like, whoa, wait, that's kind of cool. But yeah, so talk to me. Is it nature? Because, I've never really connected animals But I see nature, how I kind of want to live. For instance, you had a great example, like the walrus saying, is this my best side? I look at the trees are not comparing their beauty to one another. They're just being.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like in my face of how we humans tend to overcomplicate the very beauty of individuality. We don't see that. We tend to judge that instead of like, oh my gosh, this is unique. And that's what I love. I love that you're an MD of the soul. That is awesome.
And I love that, what you were talking about, this like comparing to each other, wanting to be like, I remember one day sitting in the woods during this ceremony, and I was just thinking about wanting to be better at everything and wanting to be the best, like really wanting to, how we as a medical person, of course, we all wanted to get the outstanding grades and be the top of the class and all that kind of stuff, that competitive, perfectionistic nature. And I was thinking about how perfect I wanted to be and all these things I'm trying to do. And I suddenly just had this insight, like what the world would be like if we were all perfect, and how it would be this strange robotic world, because the earth is like, if you look at a tree, I mean, they're all cattywampus and part of it is going this way, but that's how it becomes beautiful, is in its kind of imperfection. And on that same level, like, I think death is a huge teaching from nature. You go in the woods and it's like, what do you see? There are trees down everywhere, and nobody's screaming and yelling and saying, I shouldn't be dying. It's too early for me to die, or, whatever it is. It's like they're just surrendering. And this isn't to say we shouldn't be upset when our life is being cut short.
Right.
And we could talk more about that too. I'm a melanoma survivor. So
Are you really?
I've encountered that as well. Yes.
My boyfriend died of melanoma.
I know when you said that, I was like, so I think that's the other thing nature can show us, that, like this just recently when my mom was going through her passage into death, and this was just immediately after she died, I was feeling so overwhelmed with so much grief. It was like, I wanted these animal sounds to come out of me. But of course, in our culture, that's not okay. I kind of wish it was. I don't know if you've read the book, The Smell of Rain on Dust by Martin Prechtel, but he's a Guatemalan shaman, and he talks about how in their town, they have these professional grievers that come in and they're just like, ah! They just basically start to let it out, crying and screaming and yelling. And anyway, I had this really feeling of terrible. So I finally went out, parked my car, hiked in a few miles where I knew nobody was going to be around. And I just laid down in this meadow and I just like really let it out. Just like, just like crying, like probably like a little kid would, when you're just wanting to. And then it felt so good because I just felt all these trees around me. And then all of a sudden the fall leaves, how those beautiful aspens start to shimmer and shake, and they just started shimmering. And then all these leaves just let go. And it was just like they were all flying through the air. And it was just like spirit saying, like, it could be so easy. Just it's so light. Like, we do not hang on to our branches. We just go. And it's no problem. And it's so effortless. And it's like, I feel nature shows us the instructions of how to die. And it's all there, like encoded everywhere you go, as these, and they're just, anyway, all those seasons that teach us how to grow, how to die, how to live.
You touched on something, energy in nature. And I think we underestimate the energy we as people have. Because I believe, when I was doing this, Live Well, Die Well tour across the United States in an RV with my dog, I felt the energy of Rob, my boyfriend, with me a lot. And I think, it's like, I'm not going to say anything because no one has a Del Sol Honda anymore, but every state I was in, one would pass me. And it's like, how do you connect, what's happening and not let it be so woo-woo? But yet it gave me such comfort. It gave me comfort. And when you were talking about the leaves, was that your mom? A part of her energy. And I just love that nature provides all the questions and answers at the same time.
Yeah.
But we humans are so busy.
And I think those experiences where something happens, like you see the Del Sol, the Honda Del Sol. I have friends who, like, if they see hair ties, they know it's their husband who's died. The morning after my mom died, it was 4:30 in the morning and I was lying in bed, couldn't sleep, in that grief-stricken state. And through the window came this amazing breeze and it just filled the whole room. And I knew it was my mom. And it was like she was there in the room with me, but then she was also everywhere. And it was just so profound and so healing and so beautiful. It was just like, oh, wow. And later that morning, I told my husband about it. And he goes, well, that's doubly amazing because the window was closed. And I had to run upstairs because I was like, it was just like this beautiful fall breeze. I mean, I felt it like on my skin and everything. So I think but these stories, right, I can share this story, but it doesn't mean it's so different from me having that profound experience. Like, you have to experience it ourselves. You have to see that Del Sol, and it only means that to you. And people can say logically, well, of course, there's 2% Del Sols of all Hondas ever sold in America. It's just statistics. Like my dad would say that,
Right.
But yeah, when we get that reassurance, it feels so good.
It is. And what I love about your work is that you're using energy of animals and nature and how it brought you to your true calling. Because when I see what you're doing on social media and now experiencing your energy in front of me and talking with you, you were born to do this.
Yeah. I mean, you know how it is when you're going through transformation. You're like, well, what am I born to do? Like, it's very confusing.
It totally is confusing, and never ask for clarity because damn, it would be totally
But
confusing.
I do feel like I'm doing what I'm born to do. Like, I finally do feel that way. And funnily enough, I know you're a lover of art and creativity. And when I was in that horrible, hating my medical practice, not because of anything to do with the medical practice, but just because something else was pulling at me, I started doing all this decoupage art. And it was so crazy. Like, my sister, Maria Bamford, who was a comedian, used to make jokes about she'd come over and I'd be like, dude, you want to decoupage something? Anything, tray, a mug, it. And I had all these old timey animals that I was gluing, and it was all I wanted to glue were animals. And I think it's because I would have been terrified if an animal spirit had pounced on me, at my little house and woke, I would have maybe had a psychotic break, but instead they gently introduced me to the idea that animals might help you feel better.
Well, you wrote a book about it.
Yes, I did. In fact, the Book of Beasties.
Yeah. Talk to us about that. How was that process?
Well, it's a crazy encyclopedia of of ideas for one to consider when one encounters a particular animal. Maybe you've had a deer cross your path, or maybe tigers have been coming in your dreams. What might that mean?
Or what about snakes?
Snakes. Yes, we could read all about snakes.
Because this summer I've had more. I even got bit by a copperhead.
What?
Yeah. And that's the thing is every time I turn around, it wasn't that I was scared, is that I saw them and I wanted it drew. And so I Googled it. Of course, I'm okay, yeah. What if I'm seeing so many snakes? What does that mean? And it talked about it's a transition period for you. I'm like, what? I know.
Yeah. Well, when I wrote this book, I kind of opened a ceremony, invited all the beasties who wanted to be part of it to join me, and then to make to share with me their message. And I think there's almost 150 beasties in here. So if you've got almost anybody or close relation is in here. And then it has wonderful illustrations from the 19th century. But I'll just read a little bit from Snake, shall I?
Yeah, please. Yeah, do it.
Intention that everybody listening to this needs to hear this message from Snake, just because you are listening and there are no accidents.
That's right.
This is just one part of the 2 pages, but why is the arrival of Snake so dang-nabbed intimidating for so many of us? It's because Snake often arrives to make us uncomfortably aware of our fears, both conscious and unconscious. Don't be dismayed. Be curious instead. Hers is the bite that heals. And I love that about snakes. A lot of them are poisonous and dangerous, but yet the snake is in Asclepius, the Greek story. The snake was the one who alerted us to the healing medicines of nature, of plants.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. She slithers in to wake you up. It's time to shed your skin and upgrade your entire life. Snake can show you the way to let go of everything that no longer serves you. Be warned. This beastie doesn't do it one tiny scale at a time, but all at once. The Band-Aid is being pulled off. It's better this way. You won't be in this vulnerable state forever as long as you stay curious. You're learning to embody your own power. This can result in emotional upheaval, physical pains, hypersensitivity, disrupted sleep, as well as feelings of bliss and infinite love and transcendent awareness. Awakening that energy and allowing it to flow can be an uncomfortable process. It's time to stand up and dance with Snake and receive her gift of power. And part of that is alluding to, Kundalini, which is the base, the infinite power that resides at the base of our spine, according to yogic, ancient yogic writings.
That is amazing. Oh, the crazy thing is when the copperhead bit me, I went, of course, killed it and had to take it into the ER. And, of course, they're like, why are you here? And I lift up the Ziploc bag and they're like, come on back. The doctor was like, hey, we sent so many people with copperhead bites to the hospital, but this copperhead didn't put any venom in you. This is a warning bite that you stepped on him or her, and that, hey, and I killed him. And I was like, you're telling me, but I just didn't know what else to do. That was the first time.
Oh yeah. You made the best decision you could.
Yeah.
In the moment.
But it was really interesting how everyone was sent to the hospital and I was just sent back to my RV. And ever since then, that the bite, I started seeing lots of snakes and just kind of let them alone. It was really amazing. And I love what you said and what you wrote, because I feel all of what that I'm having trouble sleeping. I just moved back into my house that I've owned for, 20 years and there's no furniture but I have space. I mean, there's just a lot of commonality in that relation. It's amazing.
And I think collectively, I think we are being invited right now to all shed our skin, because if we don't,
right,
it's not going to be good. Like we gotta.
Well, I wanted to also mention your newest book that I'm falling in love with, because you even have cards that which you're going on social media. And every time I see you, I just love what you're doing. You're just so excited about sharing the cards. And the new book is How Good Are You Willing to Let It Be? I think everyone in the United States and the world need this book right now. Because you can see there's so many positive things that are occurring that sometimes we don't see because we're stuck. And I love that title, How Good Are You Willing to Let It Be? Even the hard things.
Yes. How good are you willing to let it get was this question that Alice, my spirit animal,
which is the elephant, right?
She's the elephant, helped me to formulate at this. There was a particular moment, the title actually comes from this story that when I was on my sabbatical and I knew deep down in my soul, like I'm not supposed to go back, but I better go back to medicine because who the heck's going to pay for the kids' school and, all these practical money fears, right? So I put down, I made a prayer to the universe, universe, if I'm supposed to do all this weird, funky, beastie spirit stuff and kind of go down this path that I don't even know where it's going and it feels a little dark and a little weird, then show me, how am I supposed to do that? And so 2 weeks later, my husband got a raise, nearly to the dollar of what I was getting paid. And I was like, oh my gosh, this universe stuff it works, this is crazy. It was so bizarre. And then, but within 2 weeks, I was like, maybe it wasn't the sign.
Right.
Maybe I should still go back. And that's when I realized, I had put this, self-imposed limit on myself. And so started to ask this question, how good would I be willing to let it get? How much love would I be willing to allow in? How much abundance? How much because allowing myself to do a job I love. What happens is when we start to think about upgrading our life, we get worried like, oh, it's going to hurt somebody else, or, oh, I shouldn't ask for so much. My life is already so blessed, or, all these feelings come up. But I think, not that everything is meant for us that we want, but some things are.
Mm-hmm. And when things are really good, you're like looking around like, okay, something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, that shoe drop energy, which is, oh gosh, that's such a good, in fact, I have a whole card for the shoe dropping energy.
I love it.
It's called Let the Good Times Roll, because it's like, when it's good, let it be good. Enjoy, because surely the bad times are coming. They are, man. It's guaranteed if today was great, tomorrow's probably not going to be as great. And vice versa. When it's really horrible, I always try to remember, like, my cosmic rubber band is just being pulled back. And
right.
As soon as I let go, things will probably get better.
My whole tour this past few years have been the arrow. And I always looked about, sometimes the arrow has to be pulled back in order to be released forward.
Yes.
And it gave me hope that even though I was sometimes during the tour being like I felt stuck or that I was being pulled backwards, I always like, oh, good, because I'm going to be let go.
Shot forward. Yeah.
Shot forward. And it made those hard times like, okay, I just have to, what is the reason? What am I learning? What's the universe trying to teach me?
Yeah.
Am I aware of it? And I love that viewpoint. I really do.
And I love your sign because I believe you have one arrow going one way and an arrow going the other way, which reminds me of like this in shamanism, we have this idea of sacred reciprocity, which in the Quechua language, it's Aini, which means balance. So it's like, if I do something for you, in our culture, like if I bring you soup or something like that, then you're going to be like, oh my God, I better give her a gift certificate or a thing. And I'm gonna, but it's like in Aini, it's like we give things without any attachment and everything is automatically balanced as we just follow our hearts to do the things we want to do. And it reminds me of like nothing ever goes one way. And so in death, like it's so amazingly there's so much beauty in death, although it's like we're all so scared of it. But then and so many people have told me that when they've lost their loved one, that they actually became closer to them after death, like not in a creepy, weird, like it's controlling their life way, but just feeling their support, their unlimited support,
Oh, wow. I totally get it. I totally get that.
And it sounds like you have that with your bow,
Yeah, Rob. There. I mean, I all I felt was, as I was driving this 29-foot RV and hauling my car, my German Shepherd, and across the United States, I just felt admiration. Like, I felt him saying, "Oh my God, look what you're doing. Look at what you're doing." And sometimes when you're in that doing mode, because you forget, like, well, isn't everyone doing this?
No.
And
I assure you, not everybody is pulling an RV and with your dog. And I mean, that's an undertaking. That's like a pilgrimage that takes so much out of a person. And so you need that spirit support.
Oh my gosh. And the greatest thing I learned on this journey is the hope in humanity is still there. It is so beautiful to see people close up and to see and be in people's neighborhoods and they got to meet my dog who can't travel on a plane, but I felt really a part of a community of people, which was really cool. I often have seen, especially at the end of life, that those of us who work in the field to serve others, we often forget to serve ourselves. And what I love, I believe your words is a path to healing those that serve others. In your experience, what have you found? I mean, why is it so hard to remember to take care of us as we serve others?
Yeah. I don't know why. I mean, I think it's because we have these parts of us who are these Mother Teresa parts who are just like, keep going, don't rest. You can do this. And like, because of all these heroic mythical beings that somehow just never needed a wink of night's sleep or whatever. I don't know. Or in our minds, we think this. So I think we're always comparing ourselves to that. I know with my mom, at the end, it's like, I didn't want to miss 1 minute, it was just like every second I just wanted to be there. But at the same time, I knew I had to sleep. And the morning that she died, I had actually gone downstairs to take a nap in their house. And I was so glad my dad was paying attention, because he said, he woke me up after about a half an hour and said, Mom's breathing is getting slower. You might want to come upstairs. And that was, I had the opportunity to go upstairs, and I picked up my ukulele and I started to play for her. And it was like, I was playing the concert of my life, man. It was like all these beautiful songs I'd been learning for 2 years, and just playing it really softly. And then my sister Maria, the door opened. She came in from outside. We both just kind of took her hand. My dad walked in, and we just watched her basically just breathe her way out of this life. And it was just so beautiful and peaceful and natural. And it's just like she totally knew what she was doing, or whoever was bringing her along knew exactly what it was doing. And yeah,
it gives me the chills just to even think about it.
It was profoundly beautiful. And then she hadn't been gone for 2 minutes. We were kissing her and holding her and hugging her. And then Maria goes, Mom, you don't have to count any more Weight Watchers points as long as, it's like, you're done. And we all just burst out laughing. That was just so hilarious. Oh my goodness. Because it's our good things, right? Like this life, we are tethered to certain edicts and things that are just so damn hard.
Oh my God. That is, of course your sister said that, which is great, because it does. There is some releasing even in death. The crazy thing is I just love you. I want to be around you. And the great thing is you do retreats. I can be.
I do. I mean, right now we have one, we're going to Peru, but that one is sold out in 2021. God bless America. Hopefully we're going to get there. Hopefully Peru is going to let us in April. But I don't have any other ones, but I will eventually. Yes. Because I love.
So what do you do on these retreats?
Well, we had a pachydermal pilgrimage. We've done that a couple times where we go to Thailand and we just hang out with these elephants and kind of walk around in the forest with them and try to pick up wisdom and scrub them and bathe them and learn about the Thai culture, which is so beautiful. Not just the Thai culture, the hill tribe people there who are shamanic people. And so we spend a lot of time in nature. We do a lot of ceremonial stuff. And last time we did Kundalini yoga, all these things to help us wake up and collect our thoughts about what it is we're here for, so that when we return back home, we can get busy doing it, So we live this life that is completely, we're living the life we're here to live and not wasting time.
I love that.
And then I think I'm going to do an online version of my Till Death Do Us Start weekend, which is where we kind of have a little tiny, Baskin Robbins teaspoon size of death. Again, for the purposes of reminding us, what is important to us? What do we want to focus on? Why are we here? And I just love that work, because in all my sort of brushes with death, either through melanoma or through my experiences with dear friends dying, as in your TED Talk, you talked about how the people who die or are dying are our greatest teachers. I could not agree more with that. But in all those experiences, I always came back or shamanic initiations, they will, you will be killed in your shamanic initiation, and it's kind of a terrifying thing, but then that's how we explore these realities beyond this life and get to experience what happens when we die.
You have to let me know if you do it.
Yeah, well, I will. So
I totally want to do that.
Yeah. With the weekend, we have more time to kind of go really deep and do some and bond with each other, because it's like, we don't want to die until we feel pretty safe. The people are going to take us back. Right. So yeah, I love that work. And I think it also prepares us to help sit with others who are dying, because it just brings us present, wakes us up. And really all you need to help somebody die is to be able to sit and breathe and be calm. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to know anything. Just what was the famous lady from hospice said, look like you understand what's going on with them, that you feel you look like you're trying to understand what's going on with them, because you really can't have any idea what's going on with them, but you can breathe and pay attention. And that is, that's huge. Like I just think we're all these walking, talking altars. And
I totally get what you're saying. I really do. What's really great about your work is it makes me feel good to hear you talk and about relating energy and beasties, and here you are, a physician, and you even went as far as to create an app for people.
Yes, I did. Yes, it's the What the Walrus Knows app on iTunes.
I love it.
Yeah, and if you have a beastie, if you're working in a cubicle, not many people are anymore, but if you are, like, turn the sound off, because every time you look up a different beastie, usually the voice of the beastie will come through loud and clear, which if it's a buffalo snorting, and you're in a conference call, it can be kind of awkward. But yeah, if you're curious, there's also a guided shamanic journey on there. So if somebody wants to know who I call them who your core beastie is, you can find them that way. That's how I ended up finding mine, because my brain was too overactive to figure it out otherwise. But yeah.
Now, does it cost anything to download?
I think it's like $4.99 or something.
That's it?
It's a bargain. And it's got I think 150, 160 animals on it. So you could now, really? You could look up rabbit, or that was my mother's core beastie, which I learned so much from her rabbit medicine.
Do you feel like you're going to start seeing rabbits?
Well, we have a lot that live in our yard. And last year there were anyway, I do feel something when I see rabbits. I think about my mom, and I just feel that frequency of a rabbit, which is it's different. I mean, each beastie has its own magical way. None better or more powerful than the next, no matter how small or how big, they're all just unique like us,
Well, and you also have, other than the retreats that one day will perhaps get back to normal, but you also have online classes for people to work with you.
Yes, I do. I have a class to help people learn how to shamanic journey, which is this marvelous ancient technology we have to help us. You could connect with your spirit animal. You could actually ask your spirit animal to teach you about death and dying and how to die well, how to live well. I mean, it's amazing. There is infinite wisdom available to us, and we don't have to wait to die to access it.
That's amazing.
Go this afternoon if you like.
Well, look, how do people find you? You're not hard. I mean, because you're all over. So, and you're really, your humor is what I relate to. It just comes through. You're funny.
I'm so glad to hear that, because some days I think I used to be funnier. I used to have a lighter, whatever. I'm glad to hear that that's still there. I got some help from a llama with that, by the way, because, you can lose your sense of humor when certain things happen to you, right? Anyway, my website is followyourfeelgood.com, follow your feel good, which is sort of a command, that's what I think what I learned was in medical school, I thought it was don't do anything that feels good and then you'll be on top of the world, but I had to unlearn that. Yeah.
I love what you're doing. What projects are you working on next? Are you still going to continue to write, or are you working on a new project?
I have a little novel which I'm working on, which is I haven't gotten back to it just yet, but I have a note to myself to print it out so I can reread it. And right now I'm just creating a lot of art, with no purpose. Oh, nice. But I'm going to start a 100-day project. I'm sure you know about 100-day projects where you commit, you're going to do something for 100 days. You're going to write a haiku every day, or you're going to paint something. That's what I'm going to do. And I haven't quite clarified the scope of it, but that was actually
what is the significance of 100 days? Because you're don't fall out of your chair. I just started a 100-day commitment.
Oh, cool.
Monday. And I don't know what that means.
Well, if you Google 100-day project, it's actually a movement started by an artist. I don't know if it was one artist, but anyway, most people started in April, kind of, but I just do it whenever I feel the mood to do it.
Right.
And that's really what started, the How Good Are You Willing to Let It Get book. It started as a 100-day project. I just channeled channeled, but I mean, I went to Alice the elephant every day for 100 days and asked her to share a message for humanity, for people, and I just made some art with that or added some art to it. And then people really liked that. So I was like, well, let's turn it into a book. So I kind of expanded it and then turned it into 365 days. But I don't know what I was thinking about doing something on death and grief. Maybe we'll see. It might.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah. Like, God, let's do something about death and humor. The humorous stories around death would be really fun to collect.
Those burly hospice nurses, they have a lot of stories. That's really funny stories too.
Yeah. Like even just when you were telling your story about how the family's like, don't tell mom's dying.
Yeah.
Don't tell the kids I'm dying.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I thought everyone knew about it was just, I think humor is everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest lesson I've learned in life is when you learn to laugh at yourself. Yes. And it is the greatest gift I have ever learned because I am cuckoo. Yes. And when you can appreciate and find humor even in that, that's when I think the beasties, as you call them, can truly show you the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Humility. Absolutely. I mean, that's where it's at. And it's so hard. It's so hard to see how silly we look. I practice it every day by sharing my bad art. And I'm not going to call it bad art because that's I'm not into that. I just got to call it art. But yeah, there's just this. And if people want to think it's goofy, well, that's okay. I just have to do it.
You are a gem. And I loved this spending time with you. I just think you're amazing. And I can't wait until you have another retreat that's not sold out. Cause I want to go to Thailand. I want to go see, and I would love that.
Oh, it's so fun. And by the time people go to Thailand, it's you're all in, man. You're not I'm kind of into this retreat. I mean, you kind of have to just be there, right? It's so
right.
It's hard to be distracted when you're 30 hours away by plane.
Well, before I go, tell me your mom's name.
Marilyn.
Yes. What a gift. Thank you for what you're doing. And doing it with such grace in your own way. I love your humor. I love who you are and what you're contributing to the world. And when I saw you on social media, my energy was just attracted to yours. And I hope many people get in touch with you and really learn about their beastie and how to open their minds and their hearts to the messages that are out there for them.
Yeah, I think there's so much love. We're just swimming in it, but we need to find a door to get to it. And the beasties definitely, they can be a really fun and playful door to enter that, to access all that.
I love it. Thanks for who you are and spending this time with me.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's been a joy.
You are amazing. It's just been, and please, if there's anything I can do while you and your family are going through the holidays without mom, just know I'm sending you good thoughts, and I'm sure the bunnies will be around every step of the way.
For sure.
Yeah. Thanks again for what you do.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. And remember, you're the designer. This podcast is produced by Jason Andre with 7 Season Films. If you're interested in telling your story via podcast,